The fall of President Bashar al-Assad of Syria and the end of more than half a century of his family's miserable misrule of the country is, in and of itself, unalloyed good news. Syria's people are abundantly entitled to whatever transports of joy and hope they are presently exulting in. They have waited long and suffered much for this moment. A moment might, however, be all they get. To consider the state of play in Syria right now is to contemplate a board and/or arena, choose your own preferred metaphor, upon which many players, internal and external, are all at once playing games of varying subtlety, from chess to rollerball. This Saturday's episode of The Foreign Desk will take a broad view of the probable causes and possible consequences of the astonishing events of the last week or so, midday UK time or wherever fine podcasts are downloaded after that. This explainer, meanwhile, will consider the response, as we understand it so far, of one very interested party, Syria's neighbour and longtime antagonist, Israel. Israel has, advertently or otherwise, played a significant role in enabling Syria's revolution. Israel's recent decapitation of the Lebanese militia Hezbollah, which had long protected Assad at Iran's behest, helped make the rebels' advance to Damascus militarily feasible. It appears, however, that Israel is not going to sit around anticipating the gratitude of whoever ends up running the country next door. In recent days, Israel has taken steps in keeping with its characteristically uncompromising approach to potential threats from its Arab neighbours, or, as Israel's critics might well have it, made typically opportunistic manoeuvres to help itself to its Arab neighbours. Even as Syria's long-suffering people celebrated the overthrow of their tyrant, the Israeli Air Force was striking targets across Syria, including inside Damascus. Israeli tanks also rolled into the demilitarized buffer zone in Syrian-controlled territory on the eastern side of the Golan Heights, of which more presently, and Israeli troops seized abandoned Syrian positions on Mount Hermon and in Quneitra province, both on Syrian territory.
We gave the Israeli army the order.
In a statement likely to have prompted an amount of mirthless laughter across the Arab world, Israel insisted that this move was temporary.
This is a temporary defensive position.
Though Israel is entitled to observe that this deployment was in part by way of assistance to a UN post on Syrian territory which had come under attack from renegades unknown. Israel's recent strikes are very far from the first such raids on Syria. Israel has hit Syria pretty frequently over the last decade and change, mostly in efforts to interdict supply lines from Iran to Hezbollah and/or disrupt Iranian and Hezbollah activities inside Syria. And among the targets in this latest onslaught was a Hezbollah convoy of 150 vehicles attempting to reach Lebanon. These latest raids are, however, unusual in their intensity. Israel has delivered hundreds of strikes this week, by sea as well as by air, in what appears an attempt to demolish Syria's entire arsenal of military kit, more or less, before Syria's next rulers, or whoever else might fancy an army, navy or air force, can get their hands on it and think about pointing it in Israel's direction. Israel's Defense Minister, Israel Katz, said Israel had acted to, quote, destroy strategic capabilities that threaten the state of Israel. The shenanigans on the Golan Heights require a brief blurt of historical context. The Golan Heights are a rugged plateau overlooking northern Israel and the Sea of Galilee. Before the Six-Day War in 1967, they were festooned with Syrian military positions and a cause of considerable concern to Israel. From Israel's foundation in 1948 onwards, Syrian artillery on the Golan Heights regularly shelled Israeli towns and farms below. During the Six-Day War, Israel took the Golan Heights, enabled partly by the endeavours of Eli Cohen, the Mossad agent who had infiltrated Syria's defence establishment during the 1960s. Before being exposed and executed in 1965, Cohen had encouraged Syria's military to shelter their troops on the Golan with clumps of Australian eucalyptus trees. When war began, Israel's pilots knew what to aim at. Israel held the Golan Heights during the Yom Kippur War of 1973, and if the intention had ever been to bargain them with Syria in exchange for peace, the strategic value of the heights eventually won out. Israel annexed them in 1981. Nobody else has ever recognized Israeli sovereignty over the heights except the only country which really matters to Israel, the United States, though not until 2019. This week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, clearly attempting to forestall whoever ends up running Syria getting any ideas, said the Golan Heights would remain part of Israel for eternity. As to why Israel has hit Syria this hard this week, there are some excitable social media analysts fervently insisting that Netanyahu has staged the assault to keep his court appearance out of the newspapers. He is in the dock charged with a picturesque array of corruption offences which could yet land him in the clink. But Israel's preemptive destruction of Syria's military is entirely in keeping with the defensive doctrine which has guided Israel since its foundation in 1948, and Syria was one of the Arab countries which attempted to throttle the Jewish state at birth. Israel has always responded and will likely always respond with disproportionate severity to any threat, actual or anticipated. Please bear in mind at this point that an explainer of the motives is not necessarily an endorsement of the methods. This week's raids are Israel's message to Syria's next rulers, whoever they turn out to be, and it's the same message it always is. Don't mess with us. There is, however, decades of evidence to the effect that it is not being clearly heard. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.